Welcome to the Irrelevant Podcast. I'm Nathan Jones with my co-host Alex Lewis back for another episode this week, episode 65 with Amber Brueseke. Okay. Hopefully I got that right. Nailed that.
It.
Oh, okay. Alex and I, we went to the Real Coaches Summit this year out in Las Vegas that Aram put on. And Amber was one of the speakers there. And we reached out. We wanted to hear more about what she does in her coaching career, her coaching style. Her presentation was fantastic, overcoming some mental barriers with some of her clients. So Amber, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you taking your time away, and we'll just hand it over to you. You can tell the people who you are, what you do, and why the heck you got into this field in the first place.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So my name's Amber Brueseke, and my brand is Biceps After Babies. And I always say that was that's like the most creative thing I've ever done in my business, was just name my business. So I am a mom of 4, and have 2 high schoolers, a middle schooler, and an elementary school kid. And I started my business back in 2016, and it really was an accident. I had no intention ever of starting a business. So my background is actually in nursing. I am a registered nurse, got my bachelor's degree in nursing, worked as a neurosurgical ICU nurse for a time while my husband was actually in medical school. And once he transitioned over to residency, it was really hard for me to figure out a schedule to keep nursing. And by that point, I had 2 kids, and it just didn't make sense to stay in the nursing field anymore. So I came home and became a stay-at-home mom, but I can't sit and do nothing. And so I grew up with a mom who was a fitness instructor. And she used to take me to the YMCA. She would teach step aerobics. And that was something that was, I just watched growing up of how my mom, who had 7 children, kind of balanced being a mom, but then also really prioritizing her own health and fitness and teaching fitness classes. And so I thought, I'm not nursing anymore. So why don't I do what my mom did and teach group fitness classes? So I got into the group fitness scene, and I loved it. Taught for, 8+ years, taught a ton of different formats. And it was great for me because I could bring my kids to the gym. They could have childcare, and then I could go and teach my classes. And then I was also getting my workouts in. And then 2016 hit, and I felt like, I spend so much time in the gym, but I don't really look that much different. It just is like, I'm doing all the things, and I don't really see it, translate onto my body composition. And it was at that point that I found this little thing called macro counting. Back then it was called IIFYM, and it was kind of just really making its way from the bodybuilding space more into general population. And I found this on Pinterest, of all places. And as a nurse, I'm reading through this, and I'm like, what, this actually makes a lot of scientific sense. So many diets I read, I'm like, if you understand anything about biochemistry and physiology, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so I said, I'm going to be my N of 1 for my research study, and I'm going to try this thing out. And I started macro counting in January of 2016. And my goal was to get a 6-pack, right? I had 4 kids. Post 4 kids, I was like, I work out hard at the gym. I have at least some muscle. I want to be able to see it. And I started counting macros, and it completely changed my body composition in 8 weeks. I was floored with how much the nutrition piece was the piece that was missing for me. And I was so excited about it that I just literally started a Instagram account, just sharing, just saying, this thing is awesome. Look how much I transformed. It's this missing piece that really helped me. And people just came out of the woodworks and started asking me to coach them. And I never intended it to be a business. I never intended to coach other people. But when they asked me if I would help, I said, sure, that would be fun. And so Biceps After Babies was born back in 2016, and now has grown to having coached 9,000 women over the years, and have programs and a team. And it's just been such a wild, amazing ride.
How did you get to the name? That is a very unique name. And I thought naming my business was silly hard. And I'm like, no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. And I still probably don't even really love my business name. But how did you come up with that name? It is very unique.
Yeah. So, I remember the moment. So I wanted to start an Instagram account because I just kind of wanted to share what I was doing. And I remember thinking, okay, I need a handle. I need a name for this Instagram account. And I remember sitting in the car. If anybody's listening who's a parent, you do spend a lot of time in the car, driving kids a bunch of places. I don't know who I was waiting for, but I was sitting in the car, and I was just scrolling through Instagram, and it literally just like popped into my head, the name Biceps After Babies. And to me, what that meant was I had seen so many women, and myself having given birth to 4 kids, I see so many women who get into their 30s and 40s, have the kids, and they feel like their fittest days are behind them, right? Like that was my 20s, that was before I had kids, and now I'll never be as fit, I'll never look as good as I did previously. And I really wanted women to understand that like your fittest days, I don't care how old you are, how many kids you have, your fittest days can be ahead of you, and that it's never too late. It doesn't matter how many kids, but that you can have biceps after babies. And so when I thought of that name, I mean, it was it was just like a download, and I was like, that's it, that's the name, and I've run with it. And yeah, it's one of my most creative things that I've done in my business.
Well, you definitely have a passion for this. It sounds like you have a very strong interest in what this is, obviously because you relate to it probably. So
Yeah, for sure.
is that why you just kind of took off and ran with it in that area, is because you were like, hey, this is me. So if I can help myself in this area, I know that I have a huge audience of moms that are out there that I can help meet that need
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think that is where most coaches get started, right? Is like you have that N of one and that experience of your own personal transformation. And it's so exciting and so exhilarating, and so much can change, that then you think, well, if I can have such an amazing transformation, I would love to help other people be able to have the same experience. And I think that's wonderful and awesome, because that's what got me into coaching. That's, I think, what gets a lot of people into coaching. What I didn't realize at the point, and this has become more of like my platform and how I really hope to like shape the coaching industry, is that I didn't really realize that just because something worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody else. And it's really easy when you get into coaching to be like, well, I just did these 5 things, and if you just do these 5 things, then you're going to be successful. And then we get dogmatic, and we get like, well, why didn't you do it? And we start shaming people, and we're like, just, it was easy for me, why is it not easy for you? And I think, again, I think it all comes from a good place of like wanting to help people see the results that they want to see. But I made a lot of those mistakes at the beginning of my journey, and learned a lot about what it actually takes to get other people results that aren't me, that have a different experience that I have, that have a different body than I have, that have different circumstances that I have. And so I've learned a lot over the, since 2016, to become a much better coach that can really coach anybody. And not because you're following exactly the steps that I followed, but because I can customize things to be able to help you to get the results that you want.
For the people that are just starting out on these journeys, what are some of the easiest ways you find for them to be able to track their macros and actually adhere to them? And like, I know one thing you talked about at the summit was like changing someone's beliefs is not an
Mm-hmm.
easy task. So like, do you have like a specific process that you like to use to be able to get to the point where you can actually get those things to change?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because I find when people are coming into macro counting, especially the population that I work with, right? Like, I'm not working with bodybuilders. I'm not working with people who are trying to get stage lean. I'm working with the 40, 50, 60-year-old woman who has struggled all her life with her weight. And one of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome with a lot of the women that I'm working in is the consistency piece, right? It is that follow through. It is that continuing to track. It is that not following off the wagon after, Monday through Thursday, and then eating yourself, to oblivion over the weekend. And so that consistency piece is such an important piece. And I was actually just on a call with some of my clients yesterday, and we were kind of talking about this point of, ironically, the way that I help my clients get to that consistency is by helping them pull away from perfectionism. So a lot of people come into my program and they have it beat in their head from social media, from other coaches, that they have to be on point, and that they have to track everything, and that it has to be exact, and that they have to do it right every single day. And then if they didn't do it right, then now they're not going to be able to be successful. And they just have this mentality of perfectionism, like kind of beat into them. And I really think that's the diet industry's tool that it uses, is like, this is the right way to do this diet. This is the wrong way to do this diet. And if you do it the wrong way and you don't get results, well, you did it the wrong way. And so a lot of women come in with just this really black and white thinking, really, really perfectionistic thinking. And that is one of the things that I find prevents people the most from having the consistency piece, because they just throw in the towel. If they're not going to do it perfect, they throw in the towel. If they don't know how to track it, they throw in the towel. If they go out to eat and they can't find it in, Macros First, they're going to throw in the towel. And so to answer your question, one of the things that I think is going to help people to be able to bridge that consistency piece is ironically letting go of the perfectionism, doing it messy, doing it the best you can. I always tell my clients that, struggle with this. Well, what if I don't get it right? What if it's not exact? I say, well, aren't you getting more data by tracking something, by estimating something? You're getting more data than you would if you didn't track anything at all. And so really helping my clients to let go of that perfectionism and do it messy. Just do it better than you did yesterday really allows them to be able to build that confidence that they can just keep going, even if it's not perfect, and they're able to start to build some of that consistency. So, I mean, that is an example of, you're absolutely right, Alex. One of the things that I really work with my clients on is what beliefs are driving your behaviors. And that's such a clear example of if someone's coming in with perfectionistic thinking, that believing that it has to be perfect in order to be successful, believing it has to be a certain way, believing it has to be 100% on all the time, that is actually going to cause them to self-sabotage more, and they tend to throw in the towel. So when we can address that belief of perfectionism, they naturally start to be more consistent in their actions. And then we all know how that turns out with getting better results.
Yeah, I always tell them, I'm like, well, if you were perfect, why would you hire me?
Sure.
Like, how would I have a job? Then it
Don't
doesn't
even
really
need
make
it.
a whole lot of sense. So like
That's right.
he's like, oh, I'm not doing well. I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how else are you gonna learn?
You're in good hands.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that I see that a lot with people with it's very black and white. And I tell them, like, no, it's about making progress. Like
That's
if you
right.
can progressively make better changes and better choices and develop the better habits, then
Right.
over time the perfection might come. But either way, like you're kind of setting yourself up for failure with perfection stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And what's hard about that is I think if you posted that on Instagram, everybody would double tap that. It's like, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Like double tap. Like everybody like intellectually knows that. And yet self-sabotage is so sneaky in the way that it manifests. And so many people don't even realize that the reason they're not being successful is because of that perfectionistic thinking. They don't see it, right? It's so hard for us to sometimes get out of our own way, and they don't see that perfectionism. And so it is one of the reasons that having a a neutral third party like a coach can be so beneficial, because we can't see our own blind spots. Like that's the definition of a blind spot. And so having a coach that can show you those blind spots and say, hey, you're kind of thinking about this in a way that's not really supportive of the goals that you have set for yourself. Let's start to shift the way that you're thinking about this. And then those actions naturally follow.
so
Do
that
you
makes a lot of sense.
do you think that's just because they're so focused on the long-term outcome, like the very end process, and then they get so locked into whatever they think they want to become and what the result should be, that, like you said, they really just can't even see those day-to-day wins that they're slowly building over time, and that's what self-sabotages them ultimately? Or what are some of the biggest things you see people self-sabotage themselves with and kind of derail themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always want to make a distinction between self-sabotaging behavior and what underlies self-sabotaging behavior, because they're different. And a lot of times people can see the self-sabotaging behavior, but it isn't until you get down to the root of what's actually causing that you can start to shift it. And before I go into talking about this, maybe like an analogy here would be really helpful, for people who are more of a visual learner. When I talk about beliefs and actions and results, I like to use the analogy of a tree, where when we look at a tree, what we tend to see are the leaves and the flowers, and that would be like the visible results that we're getting. But those, they come from somewhere. They come from the branches and the trunk of the tree, and that is analogous to the action someone's taken. We know that actions produce results. You know that if you want to grow muscle, the actions you need to take, you need to go to the gym, you need to eat your food, and you need to get enough sleep and recover. So we know that those actions yield that specific result, and people are really familiar with that link. And that is honestly where a lot of coaches spend their time. Do this, don't do this, eat this, do this workout, right? It's action, 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 because we as coaches know if we help our clients take a new action, they're going to get a new result. The missing piece for a lot of people, though, is that our actions also don't just come from nowhere. Our actions come, and the trunk of the tree comes from the roots. And all of our actions stem from our beliefs, our values, and our identity. And the hard part about those is, unlike the trunk of the tree and unlike the leaves of the tree that you can visually see, the roots are underground and they are invisible. Just like we can't really see our beliefs, we can't really see our identity, we can't really see our values. What we can see is the byproduct of those things. And so when we as coaches can focus on identifying what our client's identity is, how they see themselves, their beliefs, their values, and we can help them to shift those. That naturally creates a new action that they're taking, and which then we know creates a new result. So to go back to the question of distinguishing between self-sabotaging behavior and then what is causing that self-sabotaging behavior are two different things. So, an example of a self-sabotaging behavior, and I find that clients are more familiar with the behavior, like they recognize it. They know that they struggle on the weekends. They know that they have a hard time making it to the gym 5 days a week. They know that they have a hard time not throwing in the towel when they're going to go over their macros. So most people are really familiar with how they self-sabotage. They can see it. But then that self-sabotage stems from somewhere. And oftentimes what it is stemming from is some sort of fear. The four biggest fears that I identify a lot with my clients and help them to work through is the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of not doing it right, which would also be our perfectionism, and the fear of not being enough or not being worthy. And so those four fears are typically what are causing people to self-sabotage. It's causing them to get in their own way, to prevent their own success because of those fears. And if we can address and uncover and address and shift those fears, then again, that natural byproduct becomes new actions and new results that they're getting.
That's good. I have a question from the chat, actually. So this is someone that's in the chat. They said, are there specific fitness goals or concerns that tend to arise more frequently with your clients in the age groups that you work with?
So say one more time.
So are there specific fitness goals or concerns that tend to arise more frequently with the clients that you work with and the age groups that you work with? What do you see come up the most, or what kind of happens the most?
Yeah, well, I deal with a lot of women. Again, my clientele tends to be in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so we're definitely, and they're all female. So I work exclusively with females. I did work with males for a while, but male and female psychology is just so incredibly different. And so I really just enjoy and identify with females. So 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of these women are two things that I see a lot of. One, they are often have come from a long history, a long litany of dieting. They've been dieting since they were in their teens and 20s. And so I'll have women, I just was talking to a woman yesterday. She said she's in her 60s. She's like, I've literally been dieting for 60 years. That's just, they're coming from that age when diets were just the thing to do. And that's what everybody did. And so we're really having to dial back some of that diet talk that they have learned and have really ingrained, and helping them to learn to start to trust themselves a little bit. So many of these women have outsourced their decision-making to external sources. The diet tells me what I can and can't eat. Someone else, my coach, tells me what I can and can't eat. And so a lot of the things that I'm working with these women is to help them take back that autonomy to be able to make decisions themselves and not have to look to a diet to tell you if you can eat it, but you get to autonomously make that own decision yourself. So that's a big thing I see with women in that age group. And then the second thing we're dealing with is obviously menopause and going through perimenopause and menopause and the hormone shifts and changes and the body shifts and changes that occur during that age time. And for a lot of women, I talk about 3 stages that I like to take women through. A lot of women come to me in a feeling of very out of control, and they lack control. They want more control in their life and with their body and with their food. And so that step 1 is moving from that place of not having a lot of control to feeling like I'm in more control of my body, right? And that's tracking your food, going to the gym, right? I can feel like what I'm doing is controlling the outcome that I'm getting. Like I have a hand in that control. But I always make the point that that's stage 2, right? Stage 1 is out of control. Stage 2 is feeling much more in control. But stage 3, where I want to eventually get my clients to, is a place of trust. So there's a difference between controlling your body and controlling yourself and controlling what you eat, and being able to trust yourself around food and trust yourself around what you're eating. So that's a faith. So a lot of women come in menopause feeling very out of control with their body. So stage 1 is, step 1 is to get them to feel more in control, and then to help even transition them further to a feeling of trust with themselves.
It's funny you said that about the diet culture. I had a couple female clients in here the other day, and they're like, it's so hard when diet culture got shoved down our face and our throats for the entirety of their
So
life.
long.
And they're in their 40s, 50s, kind of the same age groups that you're working with. So they're just like, it's just constantly, we're like, eat less, eat less, eat less. That mentality has just been thrown at them forever. And it's like, we're kind of going the other way where I want you to eat more, but I just want you to find that balance. And it's a real struggle for those type of clients. So I totally understand what you're saying with the diet culture thing. That's good. Alex, you have anything?
Did, and I just lost it. Like, son of a bitch.
Welcome to our podcast, by the way. This is
we were on a good run there for a second. With the people that are thinking of, like you were saying with the dieting, like they believe that they have to do X, Y, or Z to get to their specific goal. What are some of the things that you're able to do to help gain that trust that they don't necessarily have to do those things? Is it just the consistency over time that you think is the biggest part of it? Or are there like certain things that you have them do to create these new beliefs in themselves?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think, early on in my coaching, I thought it was a lot about getting them to trust me and to trust what I was telling them, to be able to follow through on the things that I was telling them. The longer I've been coaching and the deeper I get into, psychology and client transformation, the more I really realize it's getting them to trust themselves. And, trusting me may be a step in that process of, and I marry in my program, I have a background in science, right? I'm a bachelor's of degree in nursing and took a lot of physiology, a lot of anatomy, a lot of pathophysiology, like know a lot about the science of weight loss, the science of nutrition. And so I find when I can marry the science, right, giving someone a why, helping someone understand, okay, here's the science behind why I'm having you eat more calories, or here's the science behind why the scale isn't moving yet. Here's the science behind how you build muscle. When I can marry that with the psychology of helping them to understand their brain and their mind a little bit more, those two things together allow people to be able to step out into the dark a little bit, right? Trust me, trust the process, trust themselves that, hey, we can at least get started down this path. And then usually what happens is they see better results. They feel better, right? They start to like get some of those little wins that you were talking about before, Alex. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'm willing to keep stepping out into the dark, because when I did it the first time, it helped me. I felt better. I looked better. I saw better results. And then we can keep pushing that. The key that I find with, working with the brain is always such an interesting experience, because our brains are just so funny. But I find that there is this stepping out into the darkness that clients need to do a little bit. And I usually use the analogy of like a box, which would represent our comfort zone. And when we're in our comfort zone, our brain is A-okay. We're great. Our brain feels great. And the problem is then we do things like set goals of things that we don't currently have. And every single time that you set a goal that is a result that you don't currently have in your life, that goal lies outside of your comfort zone. And so inherently, you have to exit outside of your comfort zone to get that new result. You have to take new actions. And every time we do that, every time we step outside of our comfort zone, our brain freaks the heck out. Our brain does not like to not be in control. Our brain does not like not knowing what's coming next. And so our brains tend to freak the heck out. But the irony is we have to get comfortable with that discomfort of growth in order to get the things that we want. So, to kind of circle it back around, when we can teach people the science and they can understand the science behind things, plus we can help work with their brain to help them calm the heck down when they get into that discomfort, those two things together, if we can help that patient, that client sit in that discomfort, what happens is that comfort zone now expands. And so what used to feel uncomfortable now feels comfortable, and they're willing to go a little further. So it's this balance I find with clients of helping push them outside of their comfort zone, because they need to do that without, and this is always the key, without pushing them way too far out of their comfort zone where people just like can't handle it, and then they retreat back to their comfort zone. So it's always that balance of we need discomfort for growth without pushing clients to too much discomfort that they just can't do it. They just retreat.
Oh, I thought that was the fun part. I thought everybody liked doing that. It's just me.
You just weird people who are like really into growth and are like masochistic a little bit.
It was like, I think Hunter S. Thompson would say it's like you got to go and look over the edge as far as you can without falling off, right? It's like
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Like,
totally.
well, how far can we push this? So that's just
Totally.
kind of how my mind works. So that way you put it makes a lot of sense because a lot of people are not going to do that. They'd rather
Yeah.
dip their toe in.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm like,
and I think for weightlifters, right? You guys are both weightlifters. Like, I think there is that aspect that we understand inherently of like, you have to go to failure, right? You have to, nobody wants to do those last couple of reps. They suck. It's awful. It's terrible. And yet when we can understand that that's where the change is happening, right? It's like those last couple of sets that you're trying to, or the last couple of reps you're trying to eke out, that you're gritting your teeth and it just like feels so heavy. You can also tell yourself this is where the growth is happening. And so we're able to push through that. And it's the same thing in, in other aspects of your life, is like, if we can really get our clients to embrace the suck a little bit of like, this is where the change is happening. When it gets hard, when you feel uncomfortable, it's learning to sit in that discomfort, push through it, because that's when the big change happens.
I think it's funny that, or not funny, but I think it's fascinating that you try to explain the science to your clients, because sometimes I'll try to explain the science to my clients and then I look and they're looking at me like, what are you trying to say?
Over.
So yeah, how do you relay that message of like what's happening scientifically and explaining it like at a third grade level? Because
Totally.
I mean, Alex talks about that a lot. Like you got to explain it like they're third graders. So how do you relay that science and tell people about that science?
Yeah. Well, I will say that one of my superpowers is teaching. And I will definitely own that. Like I taught all through college. I was a TA for like every single science class that I took. And so that is something that I feel like I've developed over the years of exactly the ability to take something that is super complex and put it down into a way that people are able to understand. I will say, and you've probably already seen this in the interview so far, I love metaphors. And so metaphors is a way that I can often take more complex issues or topics and turn them into something that I can teach my client about that they can really grasp. And a lot of my metaphors are things that like will stick with my clients. And I actually just had someone on Instagram a couple of days ago. She tagged me in a post using a metaphor that I had taught. And she's like, you taught that metaphor like 4 years ago. And it just stuck with me. It made so much sense. So, teaching is something I love to do and I am good at it, but metaphors, I would say, is probably my number one tool to be able to help clients to really take the complex science and make it feel approachable.
I remember in the conference you talked about how like when people come to you with they say outrageous things about the health and fitness industry, and you take those and you just flip it into a question like, what did they, who said that? Or, I don't remember how exact, but I remember you talking about how like you just take it, you flip it into a question and then kind of put it back on the client. Can you kind of talk through that process about how like people that make those outrageous claims and you're just kind of like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, one of my biggest tools in my toolbox as a coach is questions. And I think, for so long, I thought coaching was knowing everything so that whenever my clients had questions, I could just answer it. And that's, I mean, obviously as an expert in our field, like we should know our stuff. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't know our thing. We should know our stuff. But I have found that the more I'm able to help the client learn to, again, rely on their own knowledge and intuition and autonomy to be able to make decisions, the better results they get long-term. A mistake I made early on in my coaching was when clients would come and ask me questions, again, I would just answer all of their questions. And then when they left me, they stopped getting results because they didn't have the guru who had all of the knowledge and information that they needed to ask questions to anymore. And so I really have worked to help my clients to be able to develop that ability to be able to coach themselves after we're done coaching. And a lot of that comes down to asking really good questions. And so a lot of times when I'm working with clients and they are coming to me with their own questions, my goal is to kind of help turn it back onto them and to help them to ask themselves better questions so that they can answer them. So, an example would be like if somebody, clients say the wildest things, right? They see the wildest things on Instagram and they're like, you can't, I don't know, everybody needs to fast for 20 hours a day. And you're like, oh my gosh. Okay. So they come to you and they like ask this question. And instead of being like, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, here's all the science, here's all the research. Let me pull up, PubMed and like pull out all the meta studies that, debunk that. Instead, I find it really much more effective to kind of turn it back onto them and say, well, who specifically said that? Where specifically did you read it? And if they just say, oh, well, I saw literally one Instagram post one time about this one thing, even them just repeating that back to you already starts to make them question, like, oh, well, I mean, it really was, I just saw this one thing one time. Okay, well, maybe we don't take everything that we see on the internet as at face value. There's a difference between seeing somebody say it one time and reading it in a research paper. So I didn't have to do a whole lot of work of like debunking something that my client said. Instead, all I just did was ask them a really good question. Well, who specifically said that? Where specifically did you read that? And even them just repeating it back to me already makes it so that they start to question it in their own mind. And I didn't have to do any of that debunking.
It's wild in the social media day and age that you could have a client that is just grooving on progress, doing great, hitting their macros, training really hard, and then they see something on TikTok or they see something on Instagram and they're like, hey, can I do this? Hey, I want to do this. Hey, what did you think about this? Hey, this could really put me over the top and really revolutionize what I'm doing. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Me, in my mind, I'm selfishly like, but look at all these great things you've done in the last month. Why do you do you find that incredibly challenging in the day and age of social media to just be like, can we take a step back and look at where we were, where we've become, where we've came to, and then like just slow your roll a little bit? How hard is that in the social media world today?
Yeah, I mean, it is this idea, and I always tell my clients, like, why are we fixing something that's not broken, right? Like that's stupid. Like, it's not broken, let's not fix it. But yes, it is really hard because social media is amazing. The access to the internet and information is amazing. However, you guys know, there's so much nuance in what we do. There's so much nuance in nutrition and training, but nuance doesn't sell. Nuance doesn't get clicks. Nuance doesn't get likes. What gets clicks and likes and shares is like really black and white, in your face content that goes against the grain. Like, that's what's going to get clicks and likes. And so it does become really hard. And so many of the women who come to me are just like, I'm so confused. I have no idea who to listen to. Everybody says conflicting things, and I don't know who to trust and who to pay attention to. And that's why one of my big things is like, well, let's talk about the science. Let's teach you the science. And then the person I want you to listen to is yourself, right? If I can teach you to listen to yourself, we can kind of tune out all of those other loud voices in the industry. And yeah, I'm not saying we ignore science. Like, let's bring in science, but let's also understand that you are an individual and we got to make this work for you and your individual goals, your individual lifestyle, and the individual, hormones, things that you are struggling with. So yeah, getting them to pay attention to themselves and stop listening to crazies on the internet.
Well, that has to make you feel incredibly proud about what you've built on social media, though, because your platform is fantastic, especially on Instagram. I mean, you have a very good following, a very large following of people. So for you to be able to know morally, ethically, foundationally, like, I've really built something that's really good, and you can sleep easy at night knowing that you're not selling some kind of snake oil program, has to feel good. But what kind of put your social media over the top? Like, what kind of helped grow your social media the most? Because you have like I said, you have a fantastic presence on there. And so what kind of did you have like a takeoff moment, or did you just, since 2016 kind of slowly build it into what it is today?
I mean, slow and steady wins the race. And that's absolutely what my Instagram account, like, growth has been like. It just is slow and steady and just really serving, right? Like you said, like, I'm just showing up to like serve my audience and to give them, real scientifically backed information. I think that is something I feel like it's more common in the industry now, but I tell you, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, taking complex scientific information and relaying it out to the public in a way that they could understand was not something that was really done a lot of. And so being able to really capitalize on that, on my ability to be able to take something that felt really complex and confusing to a lot of people and simplify it down, I think, really helped my social media to grow. And then just sticking with like what I am and what I know and not trying to go outside of it. I'm not for bodybuilders. If you want to do a fitness competition, that's not my jam. If you're a woman 40, 50, and 60 years old, I got you, right? So really honing in on the people that I serve, what are their needs, and then being able to serve them. But there's no magic sauce. It is just slow and steady. And I've been doing it since 2016. a long time.
Well, it's very authentic and it comes off as very real. And some of the times when you're doing the funny dance stuff, I'm like, okay, see, this is a real human being that's willing to put themselves out there in a way that I probably would not do. So self-respect to you. Good job. You understand your niche. You understand your goals. That's just fantastic. Alex, you got anything?
Thank you.
I'm just sad over here. There's no secret sauce.
No, I know. I wish I had it. I wish I could pull it out and give it to you.
It's funny. I think we even talked about that at the conference, Alex. We were sitting here and then we would look you guys up, obviously, as you were speaking. And then it would be like, oh, they have this many followers. Oh, and then it's just like, man, I wonder if there is like this secret. But you guys are all fantastic speakers as well. So, I mean, like you said, relaying your information in the way you do is huge. So,
yeah, for sure.
As they say, slow and steady wins the race, allegedly. I'm just,
absolutely.
I'm impatient.
That's well, all. And I will say, so I started my podcast back in 2018 was when I started my podcast. And I honestly started it because I was so frustrated with Instagram because it was like a lot of, I mean, there's been algorithm changes like a bajillion times, but that was when some of the big algorithm changes came out where it went from like chronological to the algorithm actually becoming the algorithm. Right. And so I remember that like my views were going down, like things were going down. And I was like, I feel captive by this platform of not being able to get in front of people who want to hear from me. And so I said, I'm going to start a podcast so that I can kind of control, like I'm going to put it out. And if people want to listen, they can listen. And I will say my podcast has been one of my biggest vehicles for business growth. I've had it since 2018. So we've done lots and lots of episodes, but that has been something that has driven my business. Instagram is big for us as well, but my podcast is where people really can get to know me and hear the way that I coach and hear the way that I teach that is different from other people. And I would say from a business growth sense, they kind of both feed each other, right? People will find the podcast, they'll look me up on Instagram, or then people will find my Instagram and circle over the podcast.
You hear that, Nathan? We have a chance.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is you're doing it. You're doing
that's great.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Like you said you've been doing it since 2018. So is it just kind of the same cycle of Instagram? It's just like, keep staying consistent with it, keep doing your thing and keep, saying your message and preaching your message. And hopefully the followers will come. And we've seen a growth obviously in the podcast, but sometimes you look at it, you go, oh my gosh. But then you go back and look where you started and you're like, okay, we are growing. We are growing, but we just have to be patient.
We are.
What a great opportunity for you to put yourself in the shoes of your clients, right? And to remind yourself like that, is it Dan Hardy who talks about the gap and the gain? Dan Sullivan talks about the gap and the gain. And so this idea of like what we're paying attention to will determine our success. And are we paying attention to the gap, which is the difference between where we are and where we want to go? If we're sitting there paying attention to the gap, we're always going to feel discouraged. We're always going to feel defeated versus if we're paying attention to the gain, which is where we've come from, right? So if we focus most of our attention from where we've come from and the progress we have made, we're going to accelerate our progress. And so what you're putting your attention on, am I paying attention to where I would like the podcast to be or where I'd like my follower count to be? Or am I paying attention to where my follower count was or where my podcast growth was? Makes a huge difference. And then, what a great example again for you to do that own inner work so that when your clients come to you and are like, but I haven't lost 40 pounds yet. And you're like, yeah, but you've lost 7 and we're on the way, right? It's such a great example to be able to like embody that as a coach, not just say it, not just preach it, but actually embody it as a coach.
When you have these older clients and they're dealing with, menopause, things like that, or they have a thyroid issue and stuff like that, how often is it that those are actually the contributing factors to them not being able to lose the weight or make the transformation they want? Or how much of it is back to those beliefs that we were talking about in the self-sabotage? It's
a great question. And to say that that there is no impact on your results would be just ignoring science. So it definitely, like hormones definitely impact results, hypothyroidism, definitely PCOS, like these things definitely impact results. However, I would say what impacts results more is what you think is going to happen because of that condition, right? It's like, yes, does menopause impact your results? Yes. But what I find impacts it more is how women think it's going to impact it. If they're going into it thinking, I can't lose the weight now, I'm never going to be able to do it, and menopause makes it so hard, it's impossible, right? If you're coming in with those beliefs around your your certain circumstance, that, my friend, is going to impact your results way more than the menopause itself or the hormone shifts itself is going to. And so again, I'm not going to say that it doesn't impact it at all, but there is a lot of work that we can do to help shift your beliefs around how you think it's going to go, which will then translate much better into how it actually will go. And there's a lot that we can do, and focusing our attention on the things that you can do rather than the things that you can't do is going to be really helpful. So yeah, we can get women fantastic results regardless of their age. And again, when we're focusing on the gain and not the gap, it makes all the difference as well. It's like, if you're 65, are we going to be able to get you like stage lean with a 6-pack and like, you know, like looking like you're 20? Probably not. But if we're not focused on that and we're focused on, well, where were you last year and how have you progressed? Absolutely. Can we help you make progress? 100%. I don't care who you give me. I can help you to make progress.
That's what is something realistic that people in those age ranges, 40, 50, 60, should see progressionally? Like, what should be some of their goals in that age range as they started to get into those later years? What should be at the forefront of their mind? How do you keep that on the forefront of their mind? Like, how do you shift their mindset to, okay, you're not in your 20s anymore. You can't do these things anymore, but we can do these things. And what are some of those things that they should be focused on, really?
Yeah. Well, I find one of the benefits of age is that you get a little bit more perspective of what's really important. And I think a lot of people in their 20s and 30s are willing to sacrifice a lot in terms of even their health in order to look a certain way. You know, and you can kind of get away with that a little bit in your like 20s and 30s, but we see people do crazy dumb stuff, not healthy things, to be able to aesthetically, you know, look a certain way. And I think what you get as you get into your 40s, 50s, and 60s is a little bit more perspective on, well, maybe aesthetics are not the most important thing. And that perspective of priorities is one of the benefits of age, right? So we can start to set goals, one, along the lines of like, what do you want your relationship with food to be? What do you want your relationship with your body to be? Those can always be improved. I don't care what age you are. And then in the realm of like, how do we want to be setting you up for long-term health and success? What does that look like for you? You know, I have women who come in and they're like, I just want to be able to like pick my grandbabies up off of the ground without pain. I want to be able to get up off of the floor without having to have assistance. So having that perspective of like, what is success and what does it actually look like for you outside of the realms of just aesthetics? And I find it's easier to get those 40, 50, and 60-year-olds to buy into the definition of success, not singly on aesthetics. And we can almost always make progress in all those other areas. Now, in terms of aesthetics, I don't think we have to give up aesthetic goals when we're in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so focusing on body composition is really the thing that I'm really trying to get my clients to realize. That aha moment when people realize that the scale is not a one-to-one relationship with fat, right? So I can actually gain weight and have a better body composition, or I can lose weight and actually have a worse body composition. Like that, when I can get clients to really buy into that and believe that and understand that, then we can focus on body composition rather than just weight loss or just a number on the scale. And so getting women to lift heavy, you know, especially when you're going through menopause, is one of the best things that you can be doing for your body is to be lifting heavy weights during that time. So helping them to transition into lifting heavier, obviously fueling their body well. And with those two pieces, you know, fueling your body, lifting heavy weights, and reduction of stress and making sure we're recovering, those three pieces, we can improve your body composition 100%. You may not may not be a 15% body fat percentage, but we can absolutely improve your body composition from where you're at. And for a lot of women, that is around building muscle, because we see a lot of women who just don't have enough muscle on their body.
Right. It's funny. The 20-year-old clients that you work with are always very like me focus. What can I do? How can I do? And then I have a lot of 40, 50, 60-year-old clients. And the first thing that usually comes out, and you kind of mentioned it, is that relational side of like, what is my life going to look like with my kids, my grandkids? How am I going to function with them as they start to grow up? You know, can I lift them up off the ground? Can I play with them in the backyard? Like I had a lady the other day, she's been working with me for about 6 months now, and COVID really impacted her and she had a hard time breathing. And so we've really focused on the cardiovascular side of things and just trying to build her capacity back up. And she's also like, I wanted to lose a little bit of weight. And so like, she's down a tremendous amount of weight, and she's improved her cardiovascular function. And she went out the other day and did trail walking all day with her grandchildren. And it's like, she didn't get out of breath. She wasn't out of wind. She enjoyed the entire weekend and didn't have to stop. And she's like, so those are the things that you see people shift their focus to as they start to age, which is really cool to see. Super rewarding from that side of things too. So is it more, do you see a lot of that individualistic shift to more of like, what am I going to give to the people around me now instead of what am I going to give to myself? Or is it kind of a balance of both?
Yes. And there's a dark side to that, because the other thing I'm often going up against when I'm dealing with moms is that they put everybody else first before themselves. So absolutely, I definitely think as we age, we start to get less selfish, but almost sometimes swing too far to the other way. It's like when we start having kids now, it's like all we are is a mom, and we give to everybody else. And we think that if we just do that enough, that our needs will somehow magically just be met. And in reality, I'm dealing with a lot of women who have done that for so long that they don't even know who they are. They don't even have an identity of themselves. And so a lot of times I'm pushing up against this idea that if they take time for themselves to go to the gym, then that's selfish. Or if they take time to, meal prep or do something, for themselves, then they have it ingrained in their head that that is a selfish way of going through life. And so it's a little bit of helping them to unlearn that of like, yes, we don't want to be selfish. Like maybe we were in our 20s a little bit more, but maybe we've swung a little bit too far to the other way where now we don't even have a sense of self. And we think that just taking care of everyone is the only thing that we're good for. And so helping them to realize, no, prioritizing yourself, taking care of yourself, doing things for yourself is actually one of the best ways to be a good mom to your kids. And I will say that from a personal experience, right? I shared a little bit about my mom and the impact that she had on me. And she never sat me down and said, hey, look, Amber, like working out is really important, and taking care of your body is really important, and prioritizing fitness is really important, and getting and having time for yourself away from your kids is really important. She never said that to me. She just showed me with her actions of like how important prioritizing fitness was. One of my favorite memories, and this is like a core thing that created Biceps After Babies, was when I turned 14. My mom took me into the YMCA weight room. You had to be 14 to go into the weight room. So I remember my 14th birthday, she took me into the weight room. She walked me around. She showed me the machines. She showed me the dumbbells, and she very much like normalized lifting for me. As a female, I know a lot of people didn't grow up with this, but as a female, for me, it was very normal that women would lift because I saw my mom do it. And so helping women to see that what you do is teaching your kids so much more than what you say. And if all you're doing is not prioritizing yourself, not taking care of yourself, not, being healthy yourself, it doesn't matter what you tell them about that. That's what they're going to internalize. And so helping women to really see one of the best things that you can do for your kids is to take care of yourself and to prioritize your health and fitness. And in a whole lot of ways, that's going to bleed out into a positive net benefit for your kids.
We have an 11-month-old now, and she's almost 1. And I've told my wife, and my wife's been very big about that as well. She's like, gonna be in the weight room, gonna be in the gym. She's gonna be around it all the time. She's gonna grow up in that environment and in that culture. So that is a very big priority to us as well. And seeing those things from her mom and from me and establishing those things is like, well, this is just normal. And I think that's a culture shift from like what's normal in the world and the day days that we live in, where it's like a lot of parents don't go to the gym and don't prioritize those things. They're just kind of getting through their day and doing their jobs, providing financially, but not maybe really showing them how important health and fitness is. So I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to send this clip to my wife as a good reminder and be like, hey, we're this is what we're doing. So we're doing good.
So good. Yeah, it's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and one of my my proud mama moments. So we have a gym at our house as well. And my proud mama moments when she is like, I'm like, what are you going to do? And she's like, oh, I'm going to go out and lift. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love it. She just goes out and lifts. Yeah. It's like, I feel like all of that time and like her seeing, when she was there when I was doing group fitness, and she's seen me lift, and she came to my powerlifting competition and to CrossFit Opens, and like she's been there, and I didn't have to go out there and be like, okay, you need to go and lift, you need to like do this. She's just seen me do it. It's normalized. She goes out to the gym, she does her workouts, and it's like the biggest proud mommy payoff. Is
that all it boils down to? And so I'm going to ask selfishly now, because I'm like, I want the playbook, obviously, because We agree. Like we're totally on board and we agree with that completely. So is that really kind of just at its core what it boils down to is just actions are so much larger than, hey, go to the gym, go to the gym, go to the gym, go to the gym.
Yeah.
Is you modeling that so much for your daughter?
Yeah, I think modeling it and normalizing it. And we don't push our kids. So, like I said, I have 2 high schoolers. My daughter's a junior, my son is a freshman. And, my son, I really want him to get into like lifting weights. He's in basketball. He needs to bulk up. But I know that I cannot push it. And so he's kind of like, he's seen us, he comes out and lifts with us sometimes, but he's just kind of starting to get that internal desire to do it. And so I've seen him do more lifting weights, but for me as a parent, it took a little bit of like backing off to let him kind of discover it himself. But we laid that foundation of, he's come to the gym with us. He's come to CrossFit with me. We have the weights out in the gym. We go out and he's done, squats and deadlifts and things like that. And then allowing them to arrive at that on their own as a teenager. Like that, I mean, that's the key, I think, with teenagers is like, you can't tell them anything. You just got to let them you lay the foundation and then you step back and you just wait for it to be their idea. And then you're like, oh, that's an amazing idea. Where'd it come from?
I'm glad you arrived at that by yourself.
That's right. Exactly.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Alex?
So I have a hypothetical for you. Well, it's not really hypothetical. Whoever I know when she listens to this, she knows I'm going to be talking about her. But when you have someone in their 50s and they are able to gain muscle over the course of a few months, and by virtue of that, they weigh more, and they have an in-body that shows them when they weighed less that they were actually losing muscle and gaining fat, and they're still upset about gaining the muscle. How do you go about correcting that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right there, we recognize that there's a dysfunctional relationship with the scale.
Right.
And that's a big thing that a lot of women have to overcome, right? This diet culture runs very deep. And for so long, women have been told not only is less better, but as a female in society as well, lower weight makes you more desirable. It makes you more worthy. It makes you more valuable. It makes people like you more. So there is a lot of societal pressure, especially for women, that exists, I'm sure, for men to some extent, but there is so much societal pressure on smaller, take up less space. It's better as a female and as a woman. And so especially women in their 50s, that's a lot of deprogramming that we have to go through. It's just like if you have an old, Windows operating system that's been running for a really long time, it's going to take a little while to upgrade to that new operating system. So I think when we can label it first, right, to say, okay, what we're dealing with is not a moral failing. It's not that you're wrong or anything. We're dealing with old programming that you have been given. Someone gave you this programming. Someone told you a long time ago that smaller is better. Someone told you a long time ago that it's bad when the scale goes up. Someone told you a long time ago that, women shouldn't weigh X, whatever the number of pounds is. You were told that. And, you believed it for a really long time. But just because you believe something doesn't actually mean it's true. And so getting clients to start to question some of their own programming of is it really true that a smaller number on the scale makes you a better person, makes you more desirable, makes you, and then I love to externalize, because I think so often we have a hard time seeing our own blind spots, but when we externalize it to somebody else, it's easier. So if you take your best friend, is she a better person? Are you a better friend with her when she's 5 pounds lighter? And most people see the fallacy in that real quick. And if we can see the fallacy when we apply it externally to somebody else, we can start to say, well, maybe it's not true that you're better or more worthy, or that it's better to be a lighter weight. So I think when we can come at it, obviously there's a scientific component to that. And, we're teaching our clients the difference between body composition and weight. I can't tell you the number of women whose heads just explode when they learn that they're not the same thing. It's just like they have never been taught that weight and fat are not the same thing. So from a scientific perspective, helping them understand that, and then helping them to see the fallacy in this idea that smaller is better, lighter is better, thinner is better, and really starting to question some of those assumptions that they've held for a long time. And then we can go through an actual reprogramming process. So the steps that I take my clients through is we identify and see what is the lie that we are continuing to tell myself. Thinner is better, lighter is better, smaller is better, whatever it is. Where's the lie in that? And what do I want to believe instead? Well, I want to believe that stronger is better. I want to believe that healthier is better, right? That's going to be a better belief for them to hold. And so then what the work is that helping them to practice that, right? It's to practice that. When you step on the scale and your brain automatically goes to thinner is better, lighter is better, your job now is to say, hold up, that was old programming. Now I'm telling myself stronger is better, fitter is better. And I am definitely stronger and I am definitely fitter. So that repetition is how we're going to upgrade that operating system to one that is going to be more conducive to the results they're wanting to produce in their life.
Yeah. And then now I have to know, how many powerlifting meets have you done? Just one?
Just one. I did one powerlifting meet. So I did powerlifting for like 2 years. And I did one powerlifting meet and I just got to the point where I was like, I cannot squat, bench, and deadlift anymore. I am so bored of like doing those 3 same lifts over and over. And so that's when I transitioned to CrossFit. But
You
powerlifting
don't
gave
have
me a
to just
really,
do those 3 lifts, by the way.
I know,
Someone told you wrong.
but you do a lot of them. I like,
Kind of.
oh, I do
Every
a lot
time
of
I
them.
have someone take a break and do hypertrophy, they come back stronger and they're like, how did that happen? I'm
Yeah.
like, because you don't have to squat, bench, and deadlift all the time.
Yeah. And that probably was like some of my programming probably could have been upgraded a little bit. I did hire a coach and I was following a coach, but I just was like, well, here's the other thing. Powerlifting gets you in because you have so much progression at the beginning, right? It's like my squat's going up, my bench is like every time it's like PR, PR, PR. And then I got to the point where it was like, it's going to take me 6 months to put 5 to 10 more pounds on my squat. And I just don't want to do it. It's like not worth it anymore. That doesn't sound fun. Like spending 6 months to get 5 more or 10 more pounds on my squat. I'm good. I'm strong enough. And so then I transitioned out, but I did enjoy
I
powerlifting.
knew what that felt like. I have no idea what being strong enough is. What the hell is that?
See, that's the difference between like, again, I come from like a group X background and I do CrossFit now where it's like everything's different all the time.
Yeah. How does that treat you now? Because like there's 2 people in the world. I feel like there's all in on CrossFit, and then there's the people that are just like, hell no, I am not touching that. And I am one of those people. Hell no, I am not touching that. I don't want to do it. It just looks miserable to me. But how was that transition from powerlifting to CrossFit? And it's obviously stuck pretty well in your life. So what do you get out of CrossFit that you think really keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, I transitioned from powerlifting to CrossFit in 2019 and have been doing CrossFit since then. So it obviously I'm more on the hell yeah side of it. I will say that I do take breaks and I do right now I'm in a muscle building hypertrophy phase. And so I am not doing a ton of CrossFit. I go to the CrossFit gym, I see my friends, but I'm doing my own thing on the side. And then I'll pop in for a WOD every once in a while. But I will say I didn't do CrossFit for a really long time because I knew I was going to love it. And I didn't really want to, I was like not ready to commit to it. But for me, it's like the community. I like working out with people. That was hard for me with powerlifting is I was lifting in my own gym by myself. And I am just a community person when it comes to working out. For me, CrossFit became really fun because I got really strong with powerlifting. And then I could take that strength and do fun new things with it, right? It's like doing handstand push-ups, doing ring muscle ups, doing like involving the Oli lifts and doing more snatch and clean and jerk and things like that. So it was like I took that time, I built that strength, and then I could see now cool things like handstand walking. It's like I'm strong, but now I can do something with that strength. So for me, that was the transition into CrossFit. It was like, what fun new crap can I do with this strength that I've built? And let's see where we can go. And CrossFit keeps me because it is always new and it is always different. And there is always things to get better at. And so I really enjoy that, but I don't think CrossFit's for everyone. And it's obviously not even like, I always tell my clients, I'm like, I love CrossFit. If you're looking to get jacked, it's not the best way to get jacked, right? I mean, it's suboptimal programming in terms of like hypertrophy and strength. And like, you kind of doing everything, you become a jack of all trades and the master of none. But I just love it. And it's just so fun.
You just live in that middle area. It seems like it's like, we're going to be pretty strong and we're going to be in really good shape, sorta. But I'm
going to be pretty good at a lot of things, but not great at any one thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm fairly introverted. So I'm like, I like the whole me and my gym thing alone doing my thing. I don't really need anybody else. Like I'm good.
I want friends. I want competition. Oh man, that's a big thing for me too. It's like, I'm so competitive. And CrossFit just fits that bill for me.
Oh, man.
I mean, all I got out of that is powerlifting makes you better at CrossFit, but yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, she said it. She said
Not
it.
wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I'm just fucking around, but I understand why people get drawn to CrossFit. What terrifies me about CrossFit is the inexperienced people that get injured.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I'm
totally.
like,
Yes.
that's
Oh
terrifying.
my.
Yeah. And I
Those,
do think, to CrossFit's benefit, I think there was a time in, like, you know, the mid 2010s where they were really starting to become more mainstream, that they did a terrible job of like protecting people and like having newbies come in and they're trying to teach them to snatch on day one. I mean, that's just a recipe. It's a recipe for disaster.
well, that,
And to their credit, I think they've done a lot better in
yeah.
transitioning new people into CrossFit and hurting them a lot less.
I just feel like when Vine was a thing in like 2010, when the
Yeah.
Vines were coming out, they were just nonstop CrossFit Vines. I was like,
Yeah.
holy cow, these people
Yeah.
are just torturing themselves, and there's so many people getting hurt. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh. So then someone will ask me, they'll be like, okay, well, I don't want to do CrossFit and I don't really want to do powerlifting. So what do I do? And I'm like, well, just do some HIIT. Like, figure out how to do HIIT
Yeah.
and do some high intensity interval training with like not ollie lifts and not these technical lifts, but stuff that's going to be like the same time intervals and things like that. Just do some HIIT. And then if you feel like HIIT's not rewarding enough or not doing its thing, then go do your CrossFit or whatever. But as you advance, but don't just go immediately jump into a CrossFit WOD. Please don't.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I will say the coaches are a lot better trained, I feel like, and push a lot more for people to modify, right? Like any good box is going to have coaches who like won't let you put the RX weight on the bar if you're new, right? Like they're not going to let you do that stuff, because that is how people get hurt, is they go too hard, too fast, two things they're not comfortable with. And so, you know, a good box with good coaches is going to help you do that. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. People do some crazy crap with CrossFit that they shouldn't be doing.
I just see people jumping over the barbell, and I'm like, here comes the
Someone's
foot.
gonna catch a toe.
Someone's foot's gonna get clipped like every time. Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So how do you program with your clients? What do you look at specifically? I mean, everything's obviously nuanced to meet their needs and things like that. But what do you typically deal with? Are you pretty much just like straight linear, and we kind of just change the linear line as we go? How do you kind of structure your training and your programming?
Yeah, so I actually don't do a lot of programming in my business. So I focus a lot on nutrition. I have a program called Macros 101 where I teach clients about how to adjust and tweak and utilize macros to be able to hit their goals. And then I have a program called Build Your Workouts where I'm actually teaching women the concepts of progressive overload and basic programming. So that they can go and be able to build out their own like hypertrophy based programming. It's definitely more for like, again, beginners. I'm dealing with a lot of women who have never lifted weights before, who have
Sure.
no idea when I say progressive overload, what that even is.
Right.
And so I see a lot of women getting caught in the flashy marketing on Instagram, and they'll be like, I bought this program. And I like look at the programming and I'm like, you want to build muscle. This is not helping you build muscle. I know that woman looks jacked. She did not use this program to like get where she is today. So all that flashy marketing just like drives me nuts with people selling programming that just is subpar. And so I created a program where I basically teach women the concepts of progressive overload, what to look for, how to know how many reps and sets, and how to structure with compound lifts and isolation lifts, and how to progress, and how to like make sure that you're actually stimulating your body in a way that's going to build muscle so that they can do it themselves, and or so that they can go out and vet programming. I want women to be able to, if they want to go buy, there's lots of great programs out there too. But I want them to be able to go to a program and be able to look at it and vet it and say, okay, that's actually going to be really beneficial for me. That's good programming versus like, that's just good marketing.
Sure.
So these days I don't do a lot of custom programming for clients. I did that in the past, but I really want to teach women to be able to kind of do it themselves, right? Teach them how to fish so that they can do it themselves.
You just got done. Didn't you just have one of those like free?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just closed yesterday, our promotion.
Yeah. So I sent a lady over and I was like, hey, like, I don't have time to watch this right now. And she was like, well, we're going on like a 3 or 4 hour road trip. So I was like, okay, cool. Watch this. I want you to watch it and just be like, tell me like what you see in similarities wise is what I'm giving you. And if, tell me if I'm on the right track, and like compare it and be able to, you know, decipher whether or not I'm giving you a good program. And I was like, cause she's really smart, obviously, and she's handled a lot of clients, and I need to learn and grow. And so it was really good to see, like, she's like, yeah, there's a lot of really good similarities between what you're giving me, what she's talking about, and how you're structuring it. And she's like, I feel kind of weird because like I'm paying you to do my coaching and I feel like I'm kind of cheating on you a little bit because I'm going to her thing. But I was like, no, I'm trying to learn as a coach too, to make sure that I'm still doing what I need to do to help coach you. So I thought that was a really cool moment where she could look at what you're talking about, look at her own program that I'm giving her and be like, okay, cool. I can see the structure here of what we're trying to do, which is really cool. Yeah. So
yeah, and that's the goal, is like, let's make more informed consumers when it comes to weight training, because I mean, you guys know the market, like there are fantastic marketers on Instagram that are not good, that are not good coaches, that don't have good programs. Let's get them out of business by making more informed consumers so that they can actually get the best bang for their buck. If you're going to invest in someone who has good programming.
That's why I appreciate what Aram did with the Coach Summit. That's why I appreciate the podcast scene, because we get to control what we get to push out there, and like what we believe is good coaches, what we see as good coaches, and so that we're really big on that too. It's like, hey, let's talk to this person. Hey, let's promote this person.
Let's promote the people who are actually doing good for our industry and not the charlatans.
It's so diluted. It's so confusing out there. I do feel really bad for people that are beginners sometimes. And they just, man, I love giving free advice too. Like if people come to me and they're like, well, what do your programs look like? What does your structure look like? And I'm like, well, this is what we do. This is how I can help you. And then I can help you make the decision if you feel like this is right for you, or if you don't, then we can move on and maybe find something else for you. But man, it's so hard in the social media world. It's good, but it's bad at the same time. So thank you for doing what you do and promoting good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, when social media came about, the barrier of entry into being a coach just lowered so dramatically, which is great because now the barrier of entry is lower, but which is also really not great because now the barrier of entry is lower and you don't really have to actually have any credentials or know anything or like be safe to be on the internet spouting whatever you want to say. And so it is a two-edged sword of like, yes, now we have access to so many brilliant minds and access to so many not brilliant minds who just have a platform.
I think of Beth now.
Seidman.
Yeah. And Joel, I think of Beth, obviously she spoke at the conference and like the cortisol thing the other day that she put on there and people replying to the cortisol. I'm just like, holy moly. Like, this is why it is important, because there are people out there that are just completely lost and clueless. We don't need any Seidman advice out there, Alex. Keep that. Stop it. Don't promote his name.
That's Apex programming.
Don't put his name.
Best of the best of there is. What are you talking about?
Put his name.
Eccentrics grow the most. Whatever that even means. I don't even know. Just make stuff up.
Stop it. Just stop it. Oh man. So was that the first time you went to the summit? Had you been to the summit before?
I didn't go last year.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's a funny story. I'll tell it real quickly. So I didn't go last year, but I had several of my clients. So I train coaches how to coach as well. And so I had some of my coaches that I had trained in my certification at the summit. And one of my clients was like, dude, you need to be here next year. Like, this is your people, like this is your scene, like you need to be here. And so she had a couple drinks at one of the nights and she like went up and like pitched me to Aram. Pulled him aside and was like, pitched me and was like, you need to invite her. And so Aram reached out after last year's event and was like, apparently we need to have you come to the summit next year. And so I will be grateful to that client who was willing to go and pitch me to.
That's
Aram
awesome.
afterwards.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. They're picking the right people to put the right platforms on. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was did you have a big takeaway from the summit? Did you get to like sit in and listen a lot, or were you kind of just here, there, and everywhere?
Actually, to prepare for this, I was listening to your guys' recap of the summit on your guys' podcast.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one of you said that you just came away with like, I need to do more cardio. I think that was like the overarching, like there were so many presentations.
There was,
And for good reason. I do feel like in the, the 90s, the 2000s, it was like cardio. And then we almost like swung almost too far to the other way where it's like, cardio is dumb. How do you do cardio? You just lift weights faster, and we went really far to the, like, all you need to ever do in your life is only weight train. And the reality is somewhere in the middle, right? It's like, they're actually both important and they do different things and we need to include both. And that was kind of the thing that I walked away was like getting back to the middle of like
Right.
moderation, a little bit of both, train cardiovascular, train strength. And, yeah, that was a big takeaway for sure.
There were a lot of cardio sessions, and yeah, that I did. I came away with it like, okay, I need to do a little more cardio.
Fine.
Not that I'm not doing it. I just need to do a little bit more. That's for sure.
Yeah. I also had Stacy Sims on my podcast. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's a physician, big researcher in like the menopause world. And she had her on my podcast and she talks so much about, female specific cardio and how males tend to need more zone 2, whereas females need more like sit training and, hit and specifically sit training. And so I've been including that more in my training too. And that's been like a really great addition as well. I don't know if you guys do any sit training, but
I'm going to have to go listen to that episode now. That'll be interesting.
Really hard. Yeah. Episode 313. She's fantastic. She's brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I've been doing more cardio as well in my training, thanks to the conference that we went to and then that conversation with Stacy.
Alex, you got anything else, brother?
No, apparently I need to do more cardio.
I feel like you do a lot of cardio actually, and like your programming kind of reflects that too. So I think you do.
I don't know. I would average 600 minutes of working out a week. So
that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a ton.
This guy, yeah, he's a maniacal man when it comes to training.
That's a lot.
He put on a whole I can't think of the word right now. Holy cow. A powerlifting meet. He put on a powerlifting meet and then he got done late and he went home and ate and came back to the gym to do his training because he didn't get to do
that
it.
was before the meet I did.
Oh, it was before. Oh, okay.
I went home and didn't go to sleep. I went back and worked out before the meet started and proceeded to clean it up until
just in your head now.
Just for funsies, just because.
No, I have really lofty goals.
Yeah,
it's going to take me a long time to get there, and I got to just suck it up and get to it.
Just got to do it.
I love it.
Got to do the work.
It's exciting.
But
Amber,
and then I got an Apple Watch, and now I am even more maniacally driven with my data.
Ooh, how's that been treating you?
Apparently, I get terrible sleep, but I wake up with great recovery, according to Joel's device. So I don't know what to believe anymore. I have no fucking idea. Like I've been averaging.
I get great sleep and I have not great recovery.
Really? Yeah. No. Have you used Joel's Morpheus heart rate strap monitor?
I remember him talking about it at the conference, but I have not.
So you wear it for like 2.5 minutes in the morning, and it measures your HRV and all those things, and you like do like a little survey. Like last night, I got 5 hours of sleep. This morning, I woke up with 96% recovery.
Yeah.
And that was after doing a max effort workout for bench press, and then doing some conditioning work for squats that I have to do in 2 days.
So do you take what the Apple Watch gives you because it's actually pretty accurate on measuring your sleep and then just put it into that survey, or do you just guess with the survey?
No, I just compare and contrast what's happening right now. Like,
have you compared your HRV on your Apple Watch with the HRV on the Morpheus? Like, I'm just curious.
I have not yet. I don't even know if the Apple. I'm still trying to figure out the Apple Watch.
It does. It tracks HRV. Okay. Yeah, because I track mine.
Okay. Yeah.
But
no,
I'm just
I'll have to look
curious if it's
at
accurate.
I know that the strap is more accurate in real time with the heart rate, but like the watch reads almost identical heart rate as the strap. It's just like you see the deviations on the heart strap much faster than you do on the watch.
Interesting.
So that's really accurate. And then like finding out how many steps I take in a day is pretty fascinating. But
yeah,
I
love data, man.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this? I don't know. Something, but
got to measure it or you don't know.
Yeah. How much REM sleep do you get? That's what that's what I've been looking at.
Like, I actually was just having this conversation with somebody else because they're like, no matter what I do, I can't get more than 30 minutes a night. And I usually average like 2 hours, 2.5, sometimes 3 hours.
How many hours of sleep?
Like I usually am getting 7+, usually 8+ hours.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. I sleep a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But my recovery is not that great. So
I don't know what that's like right now, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
How's your nutrition, man? No, I'm just kidding.
Not with an 11-month-old. My youngest is 10. So
yeah, 11-month-old. We're doing the teeth thing right now. And
gosh.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of deep sleep then too according to your watch?
Yeah. I guess that's the amount of deep sleep that I'm getting.
Oh, okay.
Those aren't split out on my Apple Watch. Like I don't have REM and deep. It's just deep.
Why are mine split out? What the fuck?
Where are you looking? I guess I'm
under
using
the sleep app.
Oh, I should go look at a sleep app. I use an app called Auto Sleep to like track it.
Yeah, so like last night I was 50 minutes of REM, 3 hours and 52 minutes of core, and 22 minutes of deep sleep, and I was awake for 7 minutes.
Wow. Oh, I like one.
And my whopping 5 hours of sleep that I got.
Oh,
Get this man to the bed. Yeah, get this man to the bed.
die.
And so since I've had this watch, I'm averaging 4 hours and 49 minutes of sleep.
Oh, come on, Alex. Come on, Alex.
She's so sad.
Hey, I'm still hitting PRs in the gym. I don't know.
Can you imagine?
Crazy.
What if you get 4 more hours? Can you imagine?
I know, right?
Well, this week I got really hosed on my schedule, so I just have to cram like 6 days worth of stuff into 4 days. It's pretty fun. Like it's normally like 5 sessions a day. I'm at like 6 or 7 sessions a day at the moment, and that's like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. type things.
Wow.
Golly.
It's pretty fun.
Hey, good for you though, growing your business.
Then
Well
Friday
done.
I get to drive for 6.5 hours, and then I get to do it again on Saturday.
Is that your meet is this weekend?
No, I have a client who's competing in Utah, basically.
Oh, okay.
That I have to drive for. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I agreed to handle her before I knew where the meet was. And like we get done with the consultation and she's like, oh yeah, it's in Evanston, Wyoming. And I'm like, where the fuck is Evanston, Wyoming? I look it up and it's, 500 miles away. It's like, shit.
Dear Lord.
What in mouth?
Maybe you just need to get a camper and put it at the gym. And then that way you eliminate a lot of your driving.
Maybe I could just get a van and live in the van.
Exactly.
That's what I need to do, right?
Creeper
It's
status.
not a bad move. I like that idea. Then I can just take power naps all the time.
Oh,
Do
my
you believe in
gosh.
power naps? Is that a thing?
Oh,
Amber?
yeah.
What's
Yes.
the time limit that you think? Because I've heard
I-
so many different things.
I've heard it's always like around like the 20 to 30 minutes. Like
Yeah.
that's
what I
like that's
keep
where you
hearing.
can kind of get the peak maximum like recovery and energy without getting the crash.
crap.
Groggy,
Yeah.
crappy feeling.
Yeah, waking up groggy, waking up feeling worse.
Yeah.
That's what
There's nothing worse than that, right?
That's what I told myself today, but that didn't happen. I went 3 hours. I was like, okay. I was up every hour on the hour last night, and that's no joke. Like because every time I get up, I just look at the clock to amuse myself. Like, okay, what time am I up? And it was literally, I went to bed at 8:30, and it was 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, all the way till 3:30 until I got up. It was every hour my child was up, and I'm just like,
get one of these stupid things, dude, and then it'll tell you everything.
oh my Lord.
Awful.
So I got home at 8 this morning, and I'm like, I'm laying down. So anyway.
And you got a 3-hour nap in.
I did. It was wonderful. And then I came in here and trained right before this. So that's good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Fair enough.
Sorry, we're rambling on, Amber. We're taking up a lot of your time. Do you have more time do you have anything else you'd like to tell the wonderful world about how great you are and how wonderful of a coach you are? Because that's what this is basically. It's just a shout out to how great you are.
It's just a PR pitch fest.
That's what it is. Yeah. We just want to promote good coaches and let coaches tell how great they are and what they do. So
I mean, the only thing that I just would share is just my podcast is if you're interested in like learning more, if you want to follow along, my Instagram account, Biceps After Babies, and my podcast is Biceps After Babies Radio. And we have, 300 plus episodes.
how many times a week do you do your podcast?
Just once.
Okay.
One.
Okay. See,
I
we're
did
safe,
do-
Alex.
Yeah,
no,
I
we're
did
not,
do a
dude.
period
I feel like we're so behind after I see Joe Rogan do it every day.
Oh my gosh.
That's his
stop
job,
it.
though. That's his
Stop
job.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe if it was like our job, we'd have, more
We don't have
success.
time. We just established this.
You're
Yeah,
right.
you gotta
That's fair.
there has to be some monetization with that. Like if you're spending that much time, you got to be making
Right.
money every time you're recording. And I just don't make money through my podcast. It just refers to like my coaching, where I make money. So no, I did twice a week for a while. And I was like, no, it's too much.
Overwhelming.
We're gonna go back to once a week, and
Yeah.
that's what I've done majority of the time.
I could do it twice a week if we could line up enough guests. I just don't have enough time to find the guests at the moment.
That's the hardest part for sure.
Because one with a guest and one without a guest would be fine.
Yeah, and that's what I tend to do. I do some solo episodes as well, which makes it kind of nice. It's like I do some solo episodes, I do some with guests, I do pull some from our coaching calls. So I kind of can get around a bunch of different types of content. It's not just one type of content.
I don't think I could do it by myself, just talking into the abyss.
Oh man, I talk forever.
That's what it feels like, doesn't it? I'm like, who am I talking to?
I don't know. I used to stream and do video game stuff, so it was like I could talk for. I was doing something, I guess, so I didn't really. But anyway, that was a long time ago. But we'll try to link. We'll definitely link your Spotify and your. It's on Spotify, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's on all the podcasts.
Okay.
problems. Yeah.
Cool. So we will link that link to your podcast in your description below, and we'll link your Instagram. What is your Instagram for people that want to find you? Go ahead and just shout that out so people
It's
can
just
find
biceps after babies.
you. Okay. All
Jesus,
right.
Nathan, she said it like 7 times.
I know, but
If
listen.
they haven't figured it out by this point and they made it this far,
Listen.
there's probably no helping them.
Remember, we're talking to people. We're like number 25 in Egypt, so we don't know if they do or don't know what we are saying. So I got an email one day. It was funny. It was just like, your podcast is number 25 in Egypt, and we were like,
Oh my gosh.
what the heck? So
Egypt, nice.
Those are always so funny.
yeah, it's hilarious. Anyway, Amber, thank you so much for giving us
You're
some of your
welcome.
time. You are fantastic. Thank you for what you do in the coaching industry. Keep up the fantastic work and keep doing the
Awesome.
stuff that we're supposed to do. So great job. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.